And many changes have recently taken place in APD, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. How will Delmarva's scoring adjust to these changes? And when the tiers are fully implemented, how do you feel that's going to be changing the Delmarva tool in any way?
Well, it's an interesting question that's come about. A number of people have raised this question, and certainly there's been some leadership changes at APD, and congratulations to Jim DeBogren for getting that position on a permanent basis. And I think, bottom line as it relates to some of those changes, we just need to make sure as a system we're all very supportive of the direction we need to be going. How does that all influence what we're measuring is it's a different kind of question. It really looks to expectations. In my mind, it's less about what are all of the other factors that are coming into play with service delivery, and it really falls back to what are the expectations of the service delivery system. Do we lower our expectations because of funding changes? Do we lower our expectations because of policy changes? Do we lower our expectations because of fill in the blank? Or do we say, here's the expectation? If I'm receiving services from this service delivery system, I expect my health, I expect safety, I expect all of my rights. I expect to be able to drive the service delivery system. I expect to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of the system. And I expect to see results in my life that are results that I've defined as important, results that I want to see. So again, if you look at what we're measuring, we're measuring those components. We're measuring the training of staff. We're measuring background screening of staff. We're evaluating whether the sufficient documentation is in place to justify billing. Do any of those go away in our expectation if we're reducing funding, if we're reducing, or changing other components of the service delivery system? So, have there been evolutions in the process of what we're evaluating? Yes. Will we significantly be changing over the course of this year our expectations based upon some of those issues? I have not received word from ACO or APD that that's really something they would be looking to do. And from my perspective, it seems as if we would want to continue to evaluate the system with the same high standards. So you could say, here's been the effect of a decrease in funding. Here's been the effect of a particular policy or a particular shift in how protocols within the service delivery system. If the ultimate expectation keeps shifting, you never really can measure what is the impact of the changes.
Right, well I understand that, but then you have limited waiver support coordination. Responsibilities vary from full waiver support coordination.
Sure.
Do you think it would be wrong for the waiver support coordinators to be held to the same level of accountability for limited waiver support coordination? And will Delmarva have a tool to reflect this? So in other words, waiver support coordinator that provides limited support will not see these people very often and not have as very much information about the individuals. I think many things will be missed. What do you think about this?
Well, it's a good question. It's a question that we've had historically. Are there, whenever you've had any kind of changes in the partial support coordination concepts, the bottom line, and I think you have to look back at what is our role. Our role is to evaluate the effectiveness of the service delivery system. The processes for doing that are the core, the WISC, desk reviews, et cetera, et cetera. And through those mechanisms, we're determining, is the system working for people being served? Again, if expectations are significantly changed for one group of support coordinators versus another group of support coordinators, when in fact we're evaluating the effectiveness for the individuals being served, I think if we change what those expectations are, it could very well shift our ability to evaluate the effectiveness of different types of programs we may be implementing. If someone is getting a lesser number of supports through a support coordination service, how is that impacting their outcomes? How is that impacting the generation of results in their lives? How is that impacting people's abilities to support their health needs, their safety needs? And if we're measuring at a lower level, we're measuring something differently, we may not be able to point out what is a critical concern within that system. Or we may not be able to point out the opposite, that it is such an effective system, it is working just as effectively as full support coordination. Those are the things we have to be able to measure. And when we start changing the evaluation kind of standards for different types of positions, it's very difficult to make that evaluation and make that reporting back to the state.
And can you tell me what Delmarva is doing to help educate people and providers about natural resources? And do you think that they are available enough, for people on the waiver program? It seems very hard to find basically free things nowadays.
Absolutely, absolutely. The economy is definitely hitting everyone. It really comes down to what is the training focus within the whole state, and there could always be more training, and there needs to be more training. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and I think a real coordinated effort towards training. Looking at resources. The areas have fewer resources. There are fewer resources allocated in this contract, in fact, for training than we had several years ago. Local areas may have, the state may have fewer resources, ACA may have fewer resources, etc. How do we blend those resources? How do we take what's being done by Florida Association of Support Coordinators, Florida ARC, different groups like that, the DD Council? How do we try and maximize those resources to meet the training requirements? We actually conducted 19 training sessions this past year. The sessions were defined by the recipients of the training. Again, if Area 4 felt a need in one particular type of training topic, that's the training we provided in Area 4. We went to the Family Cafe and did several training sessions there and shared information. We attend a number of different association training sessions. How much of it is dedicated towards natural support development, etc.? That has not been the key request we've received from everyone. Do we need to better develop some kind of a training system for that? I'm not sure that we've necessarily been asked to do that, but it's certainly something that we would love to be involved in. We have training sessions out on our web, training modules people can access, and really how we can educate folks is a critical component of this process. One of the neat things that's come out, and this is really something that the council has put together, I don't know if you're familiar with the LENS training, and it's really a process of going out into the community and looking at how do we understand community, not just through the eyes of someone with a developmental disability, but through the eyes of anyone in the community. What's available in that community? How can I access those things in the community? And through the Real Choice Grant, APD is working with the council to conduct, I believe it's 14 of those LENS sessions. So they've done one in Area 7 already. We've recently, all of our employees went through a training last week where a day was spent on the LENS training, so we can have a better understanding of it. So when we're going out with the providers, we can help support them in understanding those concepts. But I think that's something I would say very highly people should look to as a way to understand their community better. How do you tap into the resources if you don't know what resources are available?
Exactly.